Hi, welcome to Munch and Mend. This video is all about a subject that fits under my understanding my eating disorder section and how my eating disorder affected my mental health. And if you haven't already guessed it, it's how my eating disorder made me absolutely hate and despise myself. Throughout school, particularly middle school and then early into upper school, I always felt that there was something wrong with me and that I was kind of disliked all the time. I was unlovable. I was a bit of a freak. I was annoying. A lot of this stemmed from kind of being bullied and teased at school by my peers. It just made me feel like, there was just something fundamentally wrong with me, of me as a person. And because I tried so hard to be friends with people and to be nice to them, but there was something that just they didn't warm to me in some way, or that is how it was perceived to me as well. Also, because of my size and oh gosh, oh well, because of my size and because of the emotional eating that had made me overweight, I very frequently got called fat and ugly, which didn't help my cause. And also, being told by the GP repeatedly that I needed to lose weight because I wasn't healthy, very much kind of made me not confident about myself and very focused and obsessed and worried about my size. I know I previously mentioned that I wouldn't really talk about any of the causes of my eating disorder. However, for me, my eating disorder started when I was 5, from other causes. And to me, the bullying that I talk about and the teasing was not necessarily a cause. It drove my eating disorder. It did drive some of my binge eating disorder, but for me, I see it as a trigger to my U-turn to anorexia and bulimia at the age of 12. So a lot of the way that my eating disorder made me feel, that made me absolutely hate and despise myself, a lot of these feelings I had before, but this is when they intensified to the extreme. And like I say, I absolutely it was almost like I couldn't live my life alongside myself, that I really hated myself that much. And I'll just go through a few of those. So my eating disorder made me feel unlovable, and that was because a lot of it, I felt that I was warped, I was weird, I was putting my parents through hell, I looked like rubbish, I was not a nice person to be around, and equals feeling completely unlovable. I also felt weird, and a lot of that again was to do with all these disgusting and disturbing behaviours I was engaging, allowing my eating disorder to drive me deeper down that rabbit hole. The next one, disappointment. I felt a complete disappointment to my family, to myself, but more to my family. I'd lost my job. I was, classed as ill. To me, I felt like I was seen as crazy because at the time that my eating disorder sort of, escalated in my early 20s, it was a time, that was 20 odd years ago. That was certainly a time when mental health wasn't recognised quite as much. So, I remember my mum saying, like, her friends would say, oh, why is Donna doing this? She's so, clever or with it. And so it just made me feel like a complete and utter disappointment, and a failure. Through my bipolar, I was often quite erratic and I'd have these highs and lows. So I felt extremely annoying. I also felt quite annoying when I was at school as well, because I was often quite hyper and singing, and I don't know, but obviously it was part of my bipolar disorder then. I felt that I was very annoying and very much unlikable and an irritant to those around me. So the next one is, and I definitely felt this when I was younger as well, but this heightened to the extreme with my eating disorder and as my symptoms and my eating disorder went on. And that was, I felt different, but not in a positive way. I felt different, that, you know, I was a bit like a freak and weird, like this one up here. But yeah, I just felt there was something fundamentally wrong with me. Again, I didn't speak a lot about my eating disorder behaviours because I was so ashamed, you know, of these things that I was doing. And yeah, I just felt that it was only me doing it, and I was very different, and I was very just born wrong, basically. So yeah, that was another one that was very unhelpful, and also, you know, drove me deeper into my eating disorder as a means to cope with that feeling, and and turn it in on myself. So the next one, very similar to kind of feeds under the disappointment. I felt a complete and utter loser. Again, I'd lost my job. You know, when I left school, I'd done really well in my exams because I just got obsessed with schoolwork. And yeah, so I lost my job, and I had to stop my accountancy exams, and I'd been off on long-term sick. And to me, that was completely the opposite what people expected of me. So especially those people at school, my peers at school, that often resented me, or I felt they resented me because I did well in my exams and stuff. But yeah, everyone expected me to be some high-flying kind of academic person. And so to me, getting an eating disorder and losing my job, ending up in a mental hospital, I was a loser, an absolute waste of space. Absolutely not true, but this is what my eating disorder told me. And and it very much, like I say, capitalized off my insecurities, and you know how self-conscious and I was. So that is another one that was very, very powerful. The next one is, probably very much the same as loser. I felt a failure. Again, you know, I felt like I'd failed at everything, partly because of my perfectionism as well. You know, no one is perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. So everything I did, I failed at. And so when my eating disorder came in and my anorexia with a vengeance when I was sort of 2021, this just escalated again to the extreme. And it was very much that all or nothing, black or white thinking. And no one was gonna persuade me, convince me of any other thing than I was a failure. Despite people telling me, no, you're not a failure, and that there was just no way that I would believe it, because my eating disorder was driving me to do all these things and making me feel like I just wasted my life. And there was no getting away from that feeling. The next one, which I felt very much as a child, and especially when I was at school, like I've said before, and I was told it quite regularly, is I felt ugly. And this wasn't just physically either. I felt ugly as a person. Like I say, feeding off all these other ones, I felt unlovable, I felt weird, I was a disappointment, and I just felt like I must have been an ugly human being on the outside, but also on the inside. And again, my eating disorder capitalised off this, fed the bulimia, fed the purging anorexia, and and I think in some ways the purging was a way of kind of expelling that ugliness, punishing myself for being such a ugly person. And then the anorexia was very warped and weird and complex, but it was a way of changing my shape initially to try and be less ugly on the outside. But then obviously as it went on and the more weight I lost, I did feel very ugly on the outside as well. And because it completely made me hollow, I isolated myself. I wasn't a nice, fun person to be around when I was deep in sort of purging anorexia and bulimia. That made me feel very ugly, and one that I felt already anyway as a child and growing up. And the last one very much fits into the weird and different one, and that is feeling a complete freak. Let's put it there. A complete freak. Again, all those warped and wonderful, disgusting eating disorder behaviours I was doing. especially, you know, when I went through that episode of wetting the bed in hospital. I was like, there is just no words for you. You know, what are you? What are you? You're not even human. You don't have the right to call yourself a human. And like I say, I felt a complete freak. And and there was no convincing me that I wasn't as well with this, because my eating disorder was telling me it on a daily basis and driving me deeper, which just manifested all of these feelings. Again, like I've said, with a lot of the other kind of causes and mental health problems and roles of my eating disorder, I am so glad that I can now see this. And this has really, really helped me in my battle against my eating disorder and finally being able to let it go. So committing to treatment for that last time, and also previously, that, you know, helped me to restore and kind of see that there was a life out there. You know, it was very much all the things that helped me. So things like building relationships, regular eating and a meal plan, working with a therapist and working on myself and ways of managing all those difficult emotions that weren't necessarily, well, certainly weren't, you know, coping with it via my eating disorder, really helped me to kind of, reduce those symptoms, which, you know, had the knock-on effect of allowing me to challenge these things. But also, the less I was doing those symptoms, the less it was driving me deeper down and intensifying all of these feelings and beliefs. So yeah, today I cannot believe I feel the way I do about myself. I spent so many years disliking myself, hating myself, punishing myself, and a lot of it, like I say, was what my eating disorder was driving me to, and the feelings it was putting on me. It was just making me mentally fragile, and, you know, it's just allowed it to feed me more and more of these lies, and intensify all these feelings that was very, very destructive and detrimental to my eating disorder, but also to my recovery, and again fueled those relapses. So now I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I no longer feel a loser. I no longer feel like a failure. I no longer feel like I'm annoying, because I've learned that it's okay to be me and to be who I am and accept myself. I'm no longer unlovable. I'm no longer, well, actually I am different, but in a really positive way, because nobody wants to be the same as anyone else. You know, I spent my life trying to be like other people that I looked up to, or that I thought were better than me, or were living, you know, the perfect life, or what I thought or perceived to be the perfect life. So I know I'm different, but in a positive way now. I no longer see myself as a disappointment. Again, I no longer see myself as a disappointment. For many years I did. I still feel very, very guilty for what I put my family through. But, you know, I have overcome it in the end, and you know, they say they're really proud of me. I mean, the one regret is that I didn't, you know, my mum didn't see me in recovery, and so that is something that I really regret, and that I will never, you know, but I know she's looking down on me, and my dad said she would be absolutely proud of me. And, you know, also the work that I'm doing with this website, and, you know, the voluntary work I do, she had an eating disorder herself, so she knows what it's like, and she knows the hell and torture that an eating disorder can put on a person. So yeah, I no longer feel like a complete disappointment. I no longer feel weird. I know I'm a bit different, but I like being different now. I no longer feel ugly. I'm not perfect by any means, and I still have insecurities about the way that I look and my body and my size. But you know what? No one's perfect, and I don't want to be perfect. People love me and care about me for me, and I realise that now. I didn't have to be or have this so-called perfect figure, and, you know, and also I'm not an ugly person on the inside either. You know, my eating disorder again manifested and drove these feelings of me feeling so, you know, warped and horrible. But, you know, it was so untrue, and it just shows how toxic it was to feed me these lies. And it had made me so vulnerable and mentally fragile. I believed it all. So yes, I no longer feel ugly. I no longer feel a complete and utter freak, you know, not engaging in those weird and warped eating disorder behaviours, you know, being mentally more well, being able to focus and, you know, live in the moment and enjoy the moment. And yeah, turns out I never was a freak either. And the last one, which I cannot believe, is that I no longer hate myself, because I always hated myself. And it's so hard to think now that I actually like myself, and you know, a lot of the time now I feel like I actually love myself and I respect my body. So yes, that I can't believe, and I just want this for other people, because I know there's a lot of people out there suffering, and I know that their eating disorder is driving them to and manifesting feelings like this. And like I say, fighting it, being more resilient, becoming physically more stable, and you know, getting rid or you know, challenging all those eating disorder behaviours just made me stronger to fight it, stronger and able to engage in therapy, able to see reality and no longer believe the lies that my eating disorder was feeding and manifesting and just escalating. And yeah, so please keep fighting and join me in recovery. Bye.